And here on the Trending Now segment, my team and I do our best, and it's our absolute pleasure on a daily basis to bring you all of the trending stories that are shaping the world that you and I live in. We begin today with this development, where a member of the House of Representatives, Honorable Abdulsamad Dasuki, has raised concern over Nigeria's newly gazetted tax laws. Now, Honorable Dasuki is alleging that the laws published by the government differ from the versions that were passed by the National Assembly, and he's warning that such discrepancies could undermine the legislative process and affect taxpayers' rights. This is what he had to say.
We passed the tax laws on this floor, and Mr. Speaker, I took my time in the last 3 days to look at the gazetted pass copy, the vote and proceedings of the House of Representatives, and also went an extra mile to look at the vote and proceedings of the Senate of what was harmonized. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, what I passed on this floor is not what is gazetted.
The lawmaker, as you saw there, has now called on relevant authorities to review the gazetted documents and ensure that they align with the versions being approved by lawmakers. And the National Assembly and the government agencies are yet to respond to the allegation, but I'm sure they will. They've been very interested and very forward-thinking about these tax laws. But let's have a look at social media. Let's see what you all had to say about this. Yes. Ben Samuel says, immediate action must be taken to halt the tax reform right now. What on earth is going on in our country? Does this mean that all our lawmakers were completely deceived, with only one member sharp or courageous enough to spot it and speak up? If this is confirmed, it should lead straight to moving on. Trace SQL says, if the gazetted tax laws differ from what the National Assembly's passed, that's a serious breach. Laws must not be altered outside the legislature. This is deeply troubling. It shows how Nigeria is quietly drifting towards institutional breakdown. Now, team, it's very important to note that in my opinion, I don't believe that Honorable Dasuki was accusing anybody. I believe that he was simply asking for verification. You know, we cannot have this sort of legislative discrepancy with the new tax laws. They affect every one of us, business owners, SMEs, the everyday Nigerian. And so any sort of discrepancy could lead to a lack of compliance or could affect compliance, don't you think, Mr. Shomi?
Yeah, he actually made a generic remark, you know, without specifying exactly what the areas he was referring to. Don't forget, he was not the only one in the National Assembly when that was passed. So obviously others would have their own viewpoint. If they disagree with him, then there's nothing they can do about that. And if they agree with him, then so be it. But the fact of the matter is, there should be no reason. People are getting anxious because it's January 1st is coming, and they know the new tax law will come into place. So there are anxiety left, right, and center, particularly from those who are opposed to it.
Well, so I totally agree with you, and I think the House of Representatives or the National Assembly generally, their role is also to play. Their role is also oversight, you know, to look at things before it is also passed to law. And if they feel that there is any incongruity in what they have, you know, passed as against what is being gazetted, then it's their duty to call the government to order. But they should not whip up sentiments because, as you said, people are very, very anxious as we have January 1st, 2026, you know, approaching. A whole lot of people do not understand this. So if you feel that there is any incongruity anyway, try to invite the tax boss, you know, iron this issue out so that Nigerians do not remain in that anxious state as to exactly what it's all about, because we all owe Nigeria the duty to inform us, to educate us about these tax laws that are being passed.
Absolutely, and I have to, on here, commend Honorable Dasuki. This is what the lawmakers are for, to see the fine print on behalf of the populace. He noticed the discrepancy and he brought it to the forefront, and I think that that's great. He took his time and sat down, and that's essentially his job. Thank you so much for your input, team. Moving on, a public exchange has sparked reactions online after the Minister of Works, Dave Umahi, made comments directed at a journalist. We all know Rufai Oseni. Now, in a statement circulating on social media, Umahi accused critics of the federal government of deliberately refusing to acknowledge what he described as viable achievements on the part of the government. He was quoted as saying that denying what he called evident progress was comparable to insisting that 2 + 2 = 3, adding that such arguments amounted to wasting energy while confronting what he described as a professor of infrastructure. Have a look.
I want, Rufai. Rufai doesn't see anything good in our government, but the more you don't see good things in our government, then you are making yourself cheap. Because if 2 plus 2 gives you 4, and you are saying 3, and you are shouting, flexing muscles, spending a lot of energy to counter, a professor of infrastructure, then it's a problem.
Now, those comments that you just saw followed ongoing debates on government performance, particularly in the area of infrastructure development. Rufai Oseni, of course, as always, maintains his position, emphasizing the role of accountability and critical questioning in governance. This exchange has continued to generate a lot of mixed reactions across social media platforms, but I want to hear what you had to say about this. Let's have a look. I'll take 3 tweets. Chris Esame says, if 2 plus 2 equals 4 is proof of competence, then maybe we need to check if our calculators are working. Blind loyalty doesn't upgrade infrastructure, it just inflates egos. Key says, if refusing to cheerlead a government that can't account for trillions makes me cheap, I'll take the discount. Blind praise is for jesters, not citizens. Show your workings, Professor. MS says, Umahi still hasn't gotten over that interview with Rufai that held months ago. It's not bad to ask for accountability from government officials, is it? That's the role of the media, which Rufai has been doing. Very interesting conversation here. Some people might be wondering, why am I talking about another journalist? It's because it raises a deeper question, as always. It's very important that we hold the government accountable. It's also very important that we don't look at personalities, but we focus on policy. For a governor, instead of, some people might argue that you should be focusing on the actual infrastructure, seeing as you're a professor of infrastructure, as opposed to using your flaw, your voice, which is your asset, to criticize a journalist who's doing his job, arguably. Mr. Shomi, what do you make of this exchange?
Honestly, I mean, it's a bit worrisome, given the fact that, yes, we are beginning to see adversarial journalism in addition to presenter, editorializing. Whether that is okay or not, it's up in the air for media practitioners to decide that. But what seems clear that I think Umahi is referring to, the issue of constant criticisms without even appreciating any progress made, that they're doing a lot of work all over the whole country, and then that is not being seen by stations that are very, very antagonistic to him. So I think that's the point he's trying to make. So he's actually calling for, maybe a kind of balanced journalism.
Yes, that's very correct. I totally agree with your submission, Mr. Shomi. There is one thing to call for accountability. There's another thing about how you present that, or how that come across. Adversarial journalism, yeah, some way it's quite interesting. I used to be an adversarial journalist, but one thing is, when you're asking your question, you need to ensure that it's also based on fact. It is not out of place when you call for accountability, when you ask people to come and defend logically whatever they've done, because all these persons we're talking about, they are public servants, so they owe us a duty to give us, whatever is accountable. I saw the interview. I may not be, comfortable with some of the ways the questions, came across, but the beauty of journalism is when you know the facts, you have the fact, or you are presented with a fact, and you want to argue, you don't argue blindly. And those of us in government, we should ensure, I don't mean myself, but we should ensure that we should be ready to logically defend whatever it is that we've done with facts and figures, rather than whipping up sentiments and saying that this person doesn't like me, this person doesn't appreciate. When we see something good done, let's appreciate it. But when we see, questionable things, we should be able to, ask questions, and we should be ready to give logical answers to that.
Indeed, Tim, I couldn't agree more. Now, we know that one of the core values and the ethics of journalism is objectivity. And so if you're going to be objective, you'll see both the good and the bad, regardless of your sentiments towards any government. I know that earlier on this year, the president said that we should not censor any journalists. He called openly and said, criticize us, your voice matters. Thank you so much for your input, team. Moving on into the world of social media sports, where former Super Eagles captain John Obi Mikel has revealed how he personally ensured that players received their unpaid bonuses ahead of the 2018 FIFA World Cup that happened in Russia. Speaking recently, Mikel said that after the Nigeria Football Federation, the NFF, failed to pay the players, he personally contacted the office of the then president, Muhammadu Buhari, through his chief of staff, Abba Kyari. This is what he had to say.
Once the World Cup is done, we don't know if we're going to get this money because we don't know if we're going to be back in the national team again set up. Fair play to the. I've been asking for this money. No money coming. Nothing is happening. So luckily enough, I had the late chief of staff to Buhari, who passed away, Abba Kyari. I had his phone number, very close friend of mine. Called him up. I said, listen, Mr. Chief of Staff, we have an issue here in the national team where we need this money. 24 hours. 24 hours
later.
Private plane, money, bang, at the hotel. Hand-to-hand delivery.
Now, according to Mikel Obi, within 24 hours, a private jet delivered cash to the team's hotel, ensuring that the players received their entitlements before the tournament. He added that the move drew attention of some NFF officials who questioned his decision, but he insisted it was necessary to protect the players' rights. Of course, Mikel's revelation sheds light on the challenges that Nigerian players often faced and still continue to face regarding their bonus payments ahead of major tournaments. Let's take a look at what you had to say about this on social media. I know I'd like a private jet full of cash at the moment. Favor Deji says, Mikel didn't break protocol for ego, yet they were angry because they missed their cuts. Sometimes doing the right thing costs you, but it earns you respect. And MS says, if a player can make a call to the presidency for funding to be immediately released, why didn't the NFF take prompt action to ensure the players were paid? This just shows that the NFF knows what it's doing and has been deliberately holding the team back through its action. Now, you heard him there. He said within 24 hours, their bonuses were shipped to them flown to them via cargo, essentially, in a private jet. What that tells me, Mr. Shomi, is that this was not an issue of a lack of funding. It was a lack of will from the NFF. It was a lack of treating sporting talent like the global asset that they are. That's what that tells me.
Well, you know, there's the issue of trust deficit between NFF and Nigerian players. They always believe that is either their money will be delayed or it won't be paid in full. Then speculations about cuts being taken from it. Whether it is true or not, I don't know. They're just mere allegations. But the fact of the matter is, there's something else also very important. It tells a lot about how the country was managed in the past. I could not imagine a situation where players that have bank accounts, we are sending a private jet to deliver cash to them. What stops us from simply transferring the money to the account?
You've raised a bigger question. And that also caused a reason why is it that you deliver in cash monies to people that have bank accounts. Is it that we can't trace it, and that's how money exchange hands in those in the superpowers. But the thing is, I think Mikel Obi still has much axe to grind with the NFF, and it's so sad that the NFF has never. So far that we've been talking about the NFF, I've not seen positive stories about the NFF. Even some of our sports journalists have been saying not so bad, than criticizing the NFF for their undoings. They're not being professional. They're not treating the players well. Who should be closer to the players, if not the NFF? But the players are not really happy with the NFF. So something is fundamentally wrong with the NFF. So the government should look into it. The Sports Commission should also look into it and resolve all of these quagmires. Because, come on, we've been having lackluster performance so far that we've been having this kind of leadership in the NFF. So something has to be done because Nigeria has to remain that giant of Africa, and not just giant of Africa. We should be, place Nigeria on the map among its committee of nations.
Absolutely. The paradox of, sort of putting, unfortunately, the NFF sometimes putting stumbling blocks in front of these players and yet giving them a hero's welcome and taking credit for their sporting prowess. It's a paradox to me. NFF, how many times did I call your name? Please do the right thing for our boys. Thank you so much for your input, team. Now here on the